Welcome into another edition of the FutureSox RoundUp. My name is Elijah Evans, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Jeff Cohen. And today we welcome on Dylan Barnas, a new contributor for FutureSox, who we're super excited to have on to talk some prospects. And it's going to be a really fun episode today. We've got a lot of things lined up. But first of all, Dylan, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be here. This has been something that I've wanted to do for a while now. Really glad that it's finally happening.
Yeah, we're fired up to have you on. For those that don't follow Dylan, at Not Cease on Twitter, you should definitely check him out. Great White Sox content. He's going to have more Future Sox content coming this summer. We continue to expand our team here at Future Sox with a lot of people who just know what they're talking about and watch prospects. And when you watch prospects and you follow them carefully, you gain a lot of knowledge. And that is definitely what Dylan does. And I've noticed that over time. So we're pumped to have you on. Today's going to be a cool episode. This is our pre-recorded episode for next week because Memorial Day is our normal recording time. So we're recording this in advance. We have a little bit less to talk about in terms of games. We only have a few days of games to work with. So beyond that, we're going to briefly touch on some performances. But the main focus of today's episode is going to be players that we believe are going to make a jump in our mid-season rankings, right? So Future Sox released our preseason prospect rankings, our top 30 and our 15 players that just missed in March. And now we are here in, late May, 2 months into the minor league season. And we've got a variety of guys who, are really performing. And most of these guys we're going to talk about are guys that have shown a lot this season, where we already were, not that we weren't high on them going into the season, but now we've been able to see them for 2 months and say, hey, this guy made some adjustments, or hey, this guy's stuff ticked up a little bit. There's a lot of guys that fit in this category. So each of us brought 5 to the table. We have 15 players we're going to discuss that have kind of shown us this year that they have more in the tank to give, and we'll jump in our rankings, right? So it's going to be really fun. First of all, we'll start in the major leagues, and we'll talk about a few other things. But first, I want to ask you how you're doing too, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm doing good, Elijah. And before we get into our show, I want to extend an apology to Tyler Schweitzer. Because in our podcast last week, we were talking about all the starting pitchers in Kannapolis who deserve a promotion. And I said, Tyler better, watch out if he's going to lose a spot. And, that was bad on my part. I based that on his start of his season, which was slow. But these last 3 starts have been phenomenal. And I was at the one last night, and it was lights out. This
Yeah.
guy looks awesome.
And it's okay to have some mistakes sometimes. I'm going to get to a major apology of my own in a few minutes here. So it happens, right? And sometimes our analysis is off. Players make a jump, and Schweitzer has adjusted, right? Like that's a big adjustment that he's made over the last few weeks. And we're going to talk about him in a little bit. We'll start in the majors. Nick Nastrini recalled this past week to make a start. He made the start in Toronto on Wednesday. It was rough. It was rough for Nick. This is a guy who, it's shuffled up and down, right? He started the season expecting to be in the rotation, didn't get brought up till a few weeks in. Good first debut, rough second start, goes back down, up and down in Charlotte, right? Like he had a few games in Charlotte where he looked really good. He had a few games in Charlotte where he really couldn't find his location. Wednesday was really just a matter of location, right? And that second inning for Nick, it was just the fastball wasn't hitting the zone at all, and he was forced to throw changeup sliders in the zone. And then what happened, when I was watching, right, what happened was hitters were sitting on whatever he was throwing. The sequencing became very predictable. He couldn't locate what he wanted to, so then where he was going with the off-speed pitches became pretty predictable, and hitters were kind of just waiting back on the exact pitch they knew was coming at that point. It was tricky. It was hard to watch. I don't. This doesn't mean there's a lot of people who are going to jump the gun, right, and say like this Nastrini's not going to be a starting pitcher in the major leagues, all this other stuff, whatever. I didn't see like terrible stuff. If you guys have a different opinion, feel free to chime in. But I didn't see anything terrible with his stuff. It just ultimately just could not throw the ball where he wanted to throw it. Dylan, what did you think about Nastrini's start yesterday?
Yeah, I know we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, like as it was happening. You alluded to it there. Hitters just seemed to like know what was coming, and partially, yes, if you don't have the fastball command, you're not going to have command of pretty much anything. Yeah. So, and especially for a guy like Nastrini, where there's really 3, maybe 4 pitches if he can get that curveball down. Yeah. It's really not going to be the best day if you don't have that fastball.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, you were saying a little bit off camera, like adding a cutter or something, just like a harder breaker or something to keep the hitters in between the two. And I think that's really what they should do. We've seen guys like Eric Crochet, Michael Kopech add a cutter. I really wonder if Nastrini is going to be the next to add one.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think it might be needed right now because it's a guy who, this stuff plays up. All three of his pitches at times have looked really good, but when you're not locating that fastball, like even he threw some changeups yesterday that weren't bad pitches, but in the specific count, the way he was pitching in that game, the way he was sequencing in that second inning, they knew the changeup was coming, right? There was one to Dalton Varsho that was like, it was a great changeup. It was like 5 inches below the zone, dropping out of the zone, right? And Varsho was able to rope it down the right field line because it was just, he knew what pitch was coming. He sat back on it, he waited for it, and he just poked it out there, right? And that's just, it's a result of sequencing, right? Like when you don't have a fastball and you're only really typically going to that slider on 2-strike, 1-strike counts, right? And you're in an early count and you don't trust your fastball, they're sitting on that changeup. And then same thing with the slider later with the Bichette home run, right? Like it was like Bichette knew exactly what was coming on 2 strikes there because every last 3 batters, Nastrini had tried to go to the slider in late counts because he couldn't get the high fastball working, and he couldn't, when the changeup was going before that, it was getting hit. So it was a sequencing issue. It was a location issue, right? It was not pretty for sure. But I hope Griffol's statement was true yesterday. I really do. He kind of alluded to before the game, this is not a one-start thing. Like Nick, we know he's a part of this team. He's part of the future. Like we're hoping that he is going to be here for many starts. I really hope that's the case. Jeff, what do you think the leash is going to be like for Nastrini now?
Yeah, nothing has changed as far as I'm concerned. I didn't see it. I was in Winston last night, but we know he's a big-time pitcher. And again, he's demonstrated already that he can get major league batters out.
Yeah, he did it once. Hopefully, he can do it again.
Right.
Well, we're gonna hope for a bounce back from Nick. He should be making another start next Monday or Tuesday if all goes well. But beyond that, there was a few performances early in this week. We only have 2 days worth of games to talk about. But I want to start with Drew McDaniel. Jeff, I know this is a guy that you kind of have been on for a little while this season because he really has made some adjustments. And you'll hear in this interview coming up later in the episode, Pat Leyland was like, "Oh yeah, he changed a lot this offseason," which is cool to hear. What did you think about McDaniel's start this week? His second really, really good start in a row.
Wow, what an encore to a phenomenal start a week ago. I mean, he comes back with 7 shutout innings. It just and I talked to him afterward, and I said, "What was the big adjustment? What are you doing differently?" And his answer was really surprisingly simple. He said he warmed up longer in the bullpen. He said his problems this year have been in the first inning, and he said, "So I warmed up longer. I came in there, and then on top of that, he said I only needed to throw 8 pitches in the first inning, and there were 7 were strikes, 3 outs, and he said at that point I had all the confidence I needed, and then he was on a roll."
That's fascinating. That's pretty cool, actually. And even warming up longer, right? Like he's 7 innings in his past 2 starts. 7 innings, 20 strikeouts, no runs in his past 2 starts combined. 7 innings in each start, I should say. 14 innings with 20 strikeouts, no runs, only 7 hits total. So this is a guy, down to a 1.82 ERA on the season, 49 strikeouts across 39 and 2/3 innings, 0.93 WHIP right now. I mean, he's really good, and this is a case of like, again, this logjam we keep talking about. Like this guy does not need to be in Kannapolis. Like there's no way. But then you look at this rotation, and we're going to talk about a lot of these guys later. There's other guys in the Canyon rotation that also have no reason to be in Kannapolis anymore, and it's just the situation, right? Dylan, you want to talk a little bit about the next guy we're going to go to, which is Mason Adams, who yesterday in Birmingham, another great start from Adams. This guy is just nothing but consistent.
Yeah, I feel like every time he takes a ball, it's 6 innings, 2 or less earned runs, 7 strikeouts, maybe a few walks sprinkled in there. But, I mean, the guy does the exact same thing every single week. And I don't know how long he's going to continue to do it, but if he can continue to do it, he can continue to rise up the minor league system.
Yeah.
Like, he just doesn't walk people and doesn't allow hard contact. There was one where there was a ground ball last night. It was like 110 right back at him, and he just gloved it, threw it right to first. And that was the hardest hit ball all night. He just doesn't allow hard contact, and especially hard contact in the air, which is going to be the most damaging.
Exactly. No, really keeps the ball on the ground really well. Yesterday, he went 6 1/3, 5 hits, 1 run, 6 Ks, only 1 walk. He's only walked more than 1 batter once all season in a game, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. We're going to get to him more later in our main segment. But the other guy I want to ask you about, Jeff, because you were there last night, is Tyler Schweitzer, as you just mentioned him earlier, right, last night. So this is I want to pull up his numbers real quick because this is a guy that has totally rebounded, right? Like it was a shaky start to the season. He finished last year in Winston-Salem and made 10 appearances there. And then this year comes in as kind of one of the more experienced guys at the level alongside guys like Paulette. And the beginning of the season, he had some rough games, but now 3 straight starts with 1 run allowed in each game, at least 6 innings in all of those games. What about Schweitzer is kind of, intriguing you the last few starts?
It was tremendous. It's not a big fastball. It's 92, low 90s, but so effective. His breaking pitches, he's got a slow curve and a slider, and they're both. It's hard to know when he's throwing one versus the other because the miles per hour is very similar. Low 70, high 70s, low 80s, but he was landing all 3. He was throwing them all in different counts. Just really impressive. Unfortunately, in Winston, we don't have the ability to talk to players post game, and so I'm hoping to get back up there soon. And he's the guy I really want to talk to find out what exactly is different.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's been an adjustment for him. He's figured things out. He's working on it, right? This is a guy now that he's an older prospect in comparison to some of the other guys at the lower levels, right? And he's going to get a chance probably late in the season when we see some of these Birmingham guys start to rise up. He's one of the guys in Winston that now, if he continues to pitch like he's pitching lately, like with his command and his stuff, like he could continue to get it to the spot in Winston or in Birmingham, pardon me, later this season, right? And then 2 hitters I want to mention before we kind of dive into our main segment here. Jacob Gonzalez. This is where my apology comes in, Jeff. Jacob Gonzalez in his first 2 games in Birmingham, he just decided to have 6 hits in his first 2 AA games. After he looked good in Winston, right? But like this was a whole other level of Jacob Gonzalez the past 2 days, right? He has 2 doubles now, or a double and a home run, and in Winston or in Birmingham to start his AA career. And this is a guy that's just, I wasn't high on him coming into the draft. I'll be honest, right? Like I remember seeing his swing and seeing some of his stuff in college, and I was like, I kind of would rather go with a high upside prep guy, right? I was looking at an Aiden Miller, at an Arjun Namala. There was a few other guys I was kind of circling on my draft board, and none of them were Jacob Gonzalez. And when the pick came in, and I remember Kyle Teal getting taken 1 pick before the White Sox, and I was on a live show with James and Mike Rankin, and I was like, I really hope this isn't Jacob Gonzalez. And then there's Jacob Gonzalez, and I'm like, all right, whatever, here we go. And then last year he struggled, right? And here we are, and this guy made a ton of swing adjustments. His approach has always been strong, right? But the way he's swinging and the way he's tapping into his lower half and getting his swing around is completely different. And now he gets to Birmingham, joins this talented roster, 6 hits in his first 2 games. Dylan, thoughts on Gonzalez, starting his AA career?
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it like just a tiny bit right there. He's in a stacked Birmingham roster, so I think we're going to see this continue to, maybe not 6 for 10. I don't think so. But I mean, we're going to continue to see him continue to string hits together just because he's in that stacked lineup where you don't get a break from anybody. And that goes for that entire lineup too. You got Caro, Tatum, Elko, Baldwin. I mean, the list goes on. Like you do not get a break there. And that's going to be a thing that helps Gonzalez for one. And then it also helps the rest of the guys. But I mean, his swing has changed, like you said, insanely compared to what it was last year. He's more upright. He's going more up the middle now, as opposed to like last year he was really wide open and he was like leaning towards first base a lot. But now, he's really like standing up strong and he's putting good swings on the ball because of it. So like you said, he always has had good plate discipline, and we're seeing that combined with now his bat to ball skills are coming, and now his power is coming back too, now that he's gotten used to the new swing. And it's all, we're starting to see 2022 Jacob Gonzalez, where he was a top 5 projected pick.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, the lineup too is like when you've got a guy like Terrell Tatum starting it off, who's incredibly good at working counts, he walks a lot, and then you've got a guy behind Jacob Gonzalez in Brooks Baldwin, who's one of the best hitters in all of AA baseball this year, and then you follow that with an Edgar Caro, who's I think leading the Southern League in RBIs and just has 8 home runs now. I mean, it's such a tough lineup to pitch to, and then as a team, right, you're pitching to that lineup, and then you got to go face Drew Thorpe and Jairo Uriarte and Mason Adams and Jake Eater and Kai Bush. Like it's just and Noah Schultz now too. So it's a crazy situation there. One other guy to mention briefly is Tim Elko, who's on a 9-game hitting streak now. Elko started the season a little bit rough. Definitely looked like he was a little overmatched at times in April, just like he was at the end of the season last year in Birmingham. Starting to make some adjustments now, hitting the ball hard, and now we're starting to see the extra base hits come into play. Went deep yesterday, hit a double the day before, so 2 games this week. He's up to to 4 hits, 2 of them being extra base hits. Really just looks like he's kind of translating those hard hit balls into more long balls and more, driving the ball further all over the field, right? Jeff, do you think it's just a matter of like Elko just being there for longer and just getting himself settled there?
But that's got to be part of it. And I think the other part of it simply is that is not a ballpark that's going to see a lot of home runs. I mean, you're not going to hit 30 home runs in that ballpark in that league. I mean, I remember Gavin Sheets was there. He hit 18 home runs, and then he came to Charlotte and would hit 18 home runs in a month.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Definitely not a hitter-friendly ballpark. All right, well, let's get into this. We kind of talked about some of the guys we're going to talk about anyways, but let's talk about this. So, Future Sox, we will be working on our top 30 come mid-season, July, August time, right? And that's the time where we really can kind of combine what we've seen in this current season with what we knew coming into the year. So this is the right time, I think, to really talk about some of these players that we think are going to make a jump based on what we've seen so far. So we'll do it this way. We'll each kind of go one at a time, just mention a player, break it down, give our case a little bit about, where he was ranked and where he possibly could rank after come mid-season, right? And why that's the case, right? So we'll start with you, Dylan. Who is your first player that you kind of have marked down as a guy that you think is going to rise to the rankings?
My first player is a guy that I know we've talked a lot about, Ryan Galaney. He's a 13th rounder in 2023. He was my favorite day 3 pick at the time, but now he's exceeding everybody's expectations, including mine. Excluding rookies, he has the 3rd highest WRC plus in all of minor league baseball. It's a 199. Like, that is just incredible.
Yeah.
So through May 23rd, he's slashing 353, 444, 595. So it's a 1039 OPS, which is just insane. He hit his 5th home run last night. He's got 7 doubles and 3 triples on the year. So, I mean, he's got power and speed. I mean, we saw a guy like Tim Elko last year with big-time power, maybe not big-time speed. But, I mean, Galaney, he was set to transfer to Tennessee as a 5th-year senior. And like from Wofford, you don't transfer to Tennessee unless you're going to start. Like you're going to get a good amount of at bats, and I think Tennessee saw that, and Mike Shirley saw that, and they took him, and now he's just continuing to mash baseballs. The K rate is maybe a little bit high for what you would want out of a 24-year-old at Single-A, but I mean it's still under 20, and he walks a decent enough amount to where you can kind of mask that. But I mean he does not need to be in Kannapolis any longer. I would have liked to see him promoted alongside Eddie Park, who we're going to get to later. But I mean, who's the Winston-Salem first baseman right now? Bryce Willits?
Bryce Willits and Sean Dusenberg are kind of splitting time there,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I mean,
I'm with you. Yeah, I completely agree. I think he really doesn't need to be in Candy any longer. And the thing about Galaney too is he can play all over. Like he's been playing more first, but he's played some third in his career. That was kind of more of what he played in college. He's played some corner outfield as well. So like you can find innings for the guy, especially at this level. Like you want your players remaining versatile in the field. So Galaney is a guy that like he should be in Winston, especially that Winston lineup is definitely below quality compared to Birmingham and Canny, right? So like he should be in Winston, kind of helping that lineup out. Like he's 23 years old. He's just destroying Single-A pitchers. Like he looks like he's just overmatching. I mean, there's pitchers he's facing where it's just like this guy just like you can tell he's about to get a hit way before it even happens, right? Unranked in our preseason list, right, as a 13th rounder coming in. There's a lot of talent in the system, like we've talked about. So he came into the year unranked, and I think he's, do you think he's top 30? Is he just missed? What do you think?
I think it's no credit, no disrespect to Galaney.
Yeah.
I think he's just missed just because of how strong the top 30 is, and I think we're gonna need to see a little bit more from him in the upper minors, like similar to what we needed to see from Tim Elko last year. I think that's a decent comparison between the two, just because slightly older, destroying younger competition. But I mean, as they keep moving up, the age is just like you can't really use it anymore. The guy just continues to hit. So
yeah, completely agree there.
That's a good point, Dylan. I mean, that guy has hit from day one. He's been consistent all year. There have been no ups and downs. Yeah, I'd love to see him in Winston as well. But I will say this, Dylan. Elijah and I, every week, we kind of say, oh, this guy needs a promotion. This guy needs a promotion. And you know what? They've been happening. So I kind of like our track record, Elijah.
Yeah.
These guys have been moving after we kind of bitch and moan.
I think Galaney should be right around the corner. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I can see that.
Yeah, Jeff, who's your first player that you kind of have marked down?
Well, I went with a pitcher in Winston, Shane Murphy. He last year was his year coming back from TJ surgery. I think he made 21 starts in Kannapolis and got the innings under his belt. And this year, I think he was a little slow to start the season because of injury, but he's come back working out of the bullpen. I think 12 innings, 3 hits. He's just been lights out so far. And with Noah Schultz going to Birmingham, I think Shane's going to probably either slip into the rotation or slip into a piggyback role where he'll get a lot of innings. And he's looking really great right now.
Yeah, he looks good. Do you remember if he was ranked? I don't even think he was on I think he was unranked.
He wasn't. I don't even think he was on the guys who just missed.
I don't think he was either. Yeah, no, this is a guy. I mean, right? Like this is a late round pick, and we talk about this all the time. Like the last few drafts, the late round picks have been completely different from what we saw, 5 years ago, right? Like we have guys at each level of the minors right now who are taken in, 8th through 15th round of the past few years that are legit prospects now. Like we see it with a lot of these guys we're going to talk about today. And Murphy's another one, right? 14th round pick out of community college, right? This is not a guy you draft expecting him to be, a legit major prospect necessarily, right? But he's in Winston. He looks great. He was great, and he was good in Candy last year. He looks great in Winston. Like this is a guy at 23 years old that we could see in Birmingham later this season, whether it's in a bullpen role or a starting role. I think long term, I think he's probably more of a long mid reliever maybe, but at the same time, like he's pitching 4 innings as a piggyback right now, and he looks good. The next guy, I will go with the next guy. This is someone that we talked about earlier, so I'll cut to the chase with him. Mason Adams was the 28th ranked prospect coming into the season. I had my personal list, not to toot my own horn too much, but I had him ranked around 20-ish, I think. Mason Adams is just a pitcher. Like the dude just pitches. Dylan explained this all earlier. You heard him talk about it. I don't even want to talk necessarily about him because we keep talking about him every week because he keeps pitching well every week. What do you guys like? Where do you guys think he could realistically rank? Because you got to remember, right? Like he's 24 years old, right? So he is a little bit older, and this is his second season, right? But he had a lot of college experience. He's 24 now, but at the same time, like 2.36 ERA in Birmingham after having a 2.7 there to finish the year last year, a 2.5 in Winston last year. I mean, it's continued results at every level. Dylan, what do you think is like a realistic range for where we could rank him in midseason?
I think like the 15 spot is not out of the question, like at all, because like if you continue to give 6 innings of 1-2 run ball, it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 30. I don't care. Like if you continue to put up results, and with the stuff that Mason Adams has, like that curveball is deadly. Like it's not a minor league pitch that's just going to get minor league hitters out. That is a big league curveball, and like. I don't see any reason why he can't be top 15, maybe top 17.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a major league starter, right? Like that's the thing. If you have guys that you think can, even if it's a back end starter, right? Guys with that level of command and deception, right? Like that's a starting pitcher. He has stamina. He has command. He pounds the zone. He has a good pitch mix. He mixes it up really well. He's able to locate all over the zone. Like that's a real prospect. Jeff, what do you think? Is 15 sound accurate to you?
Yeah, I think, I'm even going to go bolder than that. I would say 10 to 15. Ooh. And the reason I say that is he's in Birmingham and he's demonstrated he can handle it. We've got, and I'm just sitting here looking at the top 30 list. There are a lot of guys who are going to fall behind him simply because he's demonstrated it. We've got a lot of potential in low A and high A, but he's doing it in double A. I think that's worth a little boost.
Totally agree. Dylan, who's your next one up?
My next guy, I mentioned him a little bit in my Galaney segment. Eddie Park. He was an 8th rounder in 2023. Just got promoted to Winston-Salem 10 days ago on the 13th. But in 70 trips to the plate in Kannapolis, he had 4 strikeouts, a 5.7 K percentage. And I mean, he's walking too. He had 17 in that same time frame. I mean, he's not going to hit for much power. He's a contact guy. He's going to get on base a lot. He's going to steal bases. He's a really good defender too. But I mean, even after the bump to Winston-Salem, he's scuffled a little bit. But I mean, he's still at a 134 WRC plus on the season, batting 299. So I mean, that's still great for an 8th rounder coming out of he was Stanford, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's continued to hit, or he's started to hit in his first full professional year. And I mean, I don't think that there's a reason why he can't be, or maybe not with the outfield room that Birmingham has, but I mean, he could be a guy that we need to keep an eye on if he continues to hit like this. And guys who don't strike out are pretty valuable in today's day and age.
Definitely.
Yeah, he and I will say last night he definitely flashed the leather, and he made some great catches and made them look easy.
Yeah, the defense is great. Park's a guy that, right, like this is late round picks. Like, let's hit on some of these. And he's already, in Winston, and he has a good approach. He has good contact skills. He has good defense, right? Like, those are pieces you want in your system. Even if he's not, a super projectable player, right? Like, that's someone who you can see rising through the system every year and could be, a fourth outfielder, or even a guy that's, a up and down AAA major league piece fill-in guy, right? Like, that's valuable. There's value in that, and there's still room to add more for him. Like, if he can add some more impact with the bat, you're looking at a potential big leaguer. So I think Parka is at least going to make the just missed. I don't know if he necessarily would crack the top 30. I could see him being in the back end of the top 30 if he starts to hit well with Winston over the next few days or the next few weeks. But at the same time, probably more of a just miss guy. But again, that's still someone that is on the radar of the prospect scheme. Jeff, next guy for you.
Well, you and I have been talking all year about all the great pitchers in the system and all the potential in the system. And one of those guys is Lucas Gordon, and he's pitching well in Kannapolis. Does he make the top 30? I don't know. He might just be like Eddie Park, right around if he gets in there, he's 25 to 30 or just a just miss guy. And the only reason I say that is because there's so many pitchers like him who've got that potential and are off to a good start.
Yeah, no, it's true. Gordon's another really good pitcher. Like, this is a guy who, in a similar regard to like we mentioned McDaniel and some other guys, like this guy has experience. Like he's pitched at Texas, high level baseball, right? A 2.12 ERA this season, 34 innings, a 1.00 WHIP, right? Like he doesn't walk guys much. He had a little bit of command issues early in the season, but generally has kind of minimized those to a degree. But really, he just doesn't allow hits. Like he's just not getting hit. Like 18 hits allowed is crazy in 34 innings. Like he doesn't really allow many hits, and he's just looks better than the competition he's facing. So it's like, this is another guy, like, we got to figure out what's going to happen here. And what it's going to take is guys getting to the big leagues. And we know this, and it's hard. And I know they don't want to rush guys. They don't want to rush a Thorpe, and they don't want to rush guys and whatever. And I get that. And we see that with Nastrini. It's hard for guys to make that adjustment to the big leagues. But in a season where you're not winning, let's see that adjustment happen at the big league level for some of these guys, because you got to start promoting these dudes. I mean, McDaniel and Gordon and other guys we're going to mention later, like, they are just way too good to be pitching at the Single-A level. And soon enough, Grant Taylor, once he gets some more innings under his belt, like, we know Grant Taylor's stuff is way too good for Single-A. Like, that entire rotation almost is already too good for the level. So it's just like, Gordon's another example, like, high level college pitcher, right? He knows what he's doing. He's been there. He's just doing it.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, Grant Taylor is in Birmingham by the end of the year.
It's
absolutely
not crazy. Yeah,
right?
It's not crazy at all. Yeah, no, it's just about the innings for him, really. I'll get to my next guy here. I'm going to go a different direction and go back a little bit, longer in the system, somebody that's been around for a little bit, and talk about Wes Kath for a bit here. Wes Kath completely fell off our rankings, right? This is a guy who was a second-round pick. He came into the organization with Colson Montgomery in that same draft right behind him, and that was kind of like Wes Kath and Colson Montgomery. Oh, that could be the left side of the infield in the future, right? Like, that was the expectation when he was drafted, and Kath has struggled a lot. Like, it has been a really rough going for him, and that's understandable why he fell off our prospect list going into the season. He wasn't even ranked in the just missed it all this year. But at the same time, look at this turnaround from a guy who's still just 21 years old. You talked to him yesterday, Jeff. Everybody should go check out that interview. That was some great insight from him. But last season, right, 586 OPS, spending the whole season in Winston. Still young, right? Like, last year he was still only 20. You got to remember that. Like, this is not an old dude. Like, he's still really young, even though he's been in the system for a few years. This season in Winston, a different hitter. He's really adjusted. He's got, 6 home runs already after having 8 all of last season. The extra base hits are coming along. He's walking a little bit more. He's still striking out a lot, and that's still going to be the big concern with him. But he's getting on base more. He's driving. He's using his power more, and he looks like he's having better at bats in general. What have you guys seen from Kath so far in comparison to last year?
What do you think, Dylan?
I mean, you sort of alluded to it there. I mean, he's hitting the ball harder, and I mean, like, I don't. Did he make any mechanical changes in his swing? I know that, like, he definitely looks like a different hitter, and
Yeah.
sometimes swings can, like, just one little tweak can be all you need. I mean, we saw what happened with Jacob Gonzalez. Granted, that was a lot bigger scale, but I mean, with Kath, I've never fully given up on him just because he was a second round pick for a reason. He has upside, and like you said, he's only 21. He there's still time. Like, if he can get to Birmingham by the end of the year, there's no reason why he can't be in that just missed 30 range. Like, he could put his name back on the map.
And
Sure.
I keep reminding myself, this is a guy who was in high school 3 years ago. Never had an at bat in college. And he was a little kid coming out of high school. He's a lot bigger and stronger now. And another thing, some really good defense last night from him as well.
Yeah, he knows how to slick it at third. Next guy for you, Dylan.
We sort of talked about him a little bit right there. Grant Taylor. He is one of my guys that was like, all right, is he gonna pitch this year or not pitch this year? Is he gonna make it like to Winston-Salem at the end of the year, Birmingham? But like, we saw him in extended spring. I think Paul Janish. I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. But he said he was 97 to 100, and I read that and I was like, what? That was just, it blew my
Right
mind.
off of TJ.
Yeah. Like, he was like 95, 98 in college, like, and then blew out his arm before his draft year even started. But the fact that he's 97 to 100 and he was dominating rookie ball guys. But then just got assigned to Kannapolis last week. Had one start through 4 innings, 2 earned runs, did allow a homer, but it was on a center cutter that he just hung, and the guy put a good swing on it. But he struck out 7 and didn't walk anybody. So that's the big thing for me, is the control is always the last thing to come back with Tommy John. We saw it with guys like Peyton Paulette, where can't really find the zone, but the stuff is there. But with Taylor, the stuff is there, and he's finding the zone. So I think we could see him really skyrocket.
So this is my question on Taylor, right? Like, I completely agree with you. He was ranked 10th in our preseason rankings. Mm-hmm. Let's say Nastrini graduates, hypothetically, right? That's one guy off the list. Ramos could graduate by then, but I don't think so. So let's say for the point of this, let's say both of them graduate. How high can we see Grant Taylor? What do you think?
I don't think that like six, maybe 7. I think that's like with an arm as high of an upside, with as high of an upside arm as he is. I think that we could be looking at like a serious starting pitcher here. With the fastball that he has, the cutter that he has, those are 2 already plus pitches, and he's coming off of Tommy John. The stuff has ticked up already. Why can't he be a top 5 prospect in the organization when he gets stretched out to 120, 130 innings next year? So this is sort of like a projection for the future. Not so much as, all right, he's a top 5 organizational prospect right now, but
no, I don't think that's crazy. That's not crazy.
And the top 30, these projections are about upside. They're not about how guys are doing today. And how many you can count on one hand, maybe 3 fingers, the number of pitchers in the system with a higher ceiling than him. I mean, I think 6 is right on. It's spot on.
I think so, honestly. He's exciting. He's going to be really fun to watch the rest of this season. Jeff, who's your next guy?
Well, I've gone with another pitcher, a guy that I've been giving a lot of props to lately, Drew McDaniel. You can't ignore what he's doing. And he probably falls in that same bucket that we've been talking about with Lucas Gordon and Eddie Park. Yep. Maybe he'll just miss out, or maybe he'll get in 25 to 30 spot. I guess it depends on, all these guys, it depends on what happens the next couple of months of the season. But I could see him one of the guys who sort of slips in there in the back end.
Yeah. We detailed him a lot, but I think a just missed guy for sure at the very least, right? Like he's put himself on the map as someone who's a legit pitcher in the system. I think we touched on him a good amount though. But that's a good one. Another good guy to mention. This is someone that my next guy is also someone we don't need to spend a ton of time on. Well, I guess we'll see what the ranking is. But Aldrin Batista, that's my guy. I've told you about this many times. Like, speaking of upside, like that's a guy that I think really has some insane upside. And you're going to hear in 10 minutes from now, in our interview with Pat Leyland, he was super, super high on Batista. And he said, he's got that funky old school delivery and he's got stuff that already plays up, right? And he's continuing to kind of tick up. Like, this is a guy who's gained some movement this season. Like, when I watch him this year, I'm like, oh, the fastball's got a notch or two more to it. He's got some life. His extension is crazy. He really comes at the mound aggressively. Batista slid in as our 30th on the top 30. Am I crazy for thinking like for sure top 20? Is that a little too aggressive? But I'm at the point where I'm ready to put Batista in like the top 15, honestly. So that might be a little aggressive, but this is a guy that's young. He's the youngest guy in that Canning rotation, and he looks like he has arguably the best stuff behind maybe a Grant Taylor, right?
Yeah, I think that top 20 is almost a for sure thing. I think the top 15 is like the more like, all right, this is a little bit of a stretch. I think that like with the, like you were saying, the upside that he has, like there's no reason why he shouldn't be. I mean, the fastball is touch 99, 100, like, and especially the slider, it's hard and it has some serious depth to it. And the changeup, he mixes it in so well. Like, it's a 3-pitch mix right now, but if he can add a fourth, if he can add a curveball or maybe a cutter and then develop that slider into more of like a sweeper, like, I mean, that's just a serious prospect.
Yeah. And time to grow, right? Like he's got time. Like he's got a lot of time on his side compared to even some of these other guys we've talked about, right? So like when you talk about projectability and the results we've already seen this year, like that combination makes me want to put Aldrin Batista real high on my top 30. So it's another exciting guy that we have listed and someone that, from the 30 spot is poised to jump at least 10 plus spots. Dylan, next guy for you.
My next guy is my guy, Javier Mogollon. He's a really advanced hitter for his age and size. I mean, he's 5'8", 160, but I mean, he's continuing to hit balls hard now that he's in rookie ball. Even last year in the Dominican Summer League, he looked like the best player on the field in almost every single game. But I mean, he started off rough in the Arizona Complex League, started 0 for 11 with 9 Ks and only 3 walks. But since then, he's gone 8 for 23, so that's 348 batting average, with 8 walks and 8 strikeouts. That's a big thing. 2 homers and 7 stolen bases. So, I mean, he's starting to heat up. Unfortunately, though, I think it was last Saturday, he did exit the game after he doubled. I don't know if he's hurt because we don't have like any news or anything coming out of Arizona. A guy exits and then you don't see him for 2 months. So, yeah, but the big thing here for me is Mogollon had 11 stolen bases in the Dominican Summer League last year in 47 games. He's already up to 8 in only 10 games this year. So, I mean, if he can continue to be a stolen base threat while also continuing to have that high impact bat that he had, there's no reason why he can't be one of the lottery tickets that might have a chance of hitting. And I know I ranked him as a top 10 organizational prospect, and I rarely do that. Like, I don't buy into hype on rookie ball guys, but I really love his makeup, and I just don't see many holes in this game. So
yeah, he's an impressive player. Yeah. I like him a lot. I think he's really good. I think to see he was ranked 24 on our initial list. With the depth in the system, to see a major jump from him, I think it'll just take some time just because he's so young and we haven't seen enough of him yet. But at the same time, like top 20 for sure. I think that's definitely realistic. And I think, you look at a guy that combination is impressive, right? A plate approach with speed with a guy that can, for his size has some serious pop in his bat. Like that's something, I don't want to say Jose Altuve because that's a huge, I know I've seen a few that floated around a little bit and that's a huge expectation to put on a guy. But I think it's that light version of that mold, right? A small dude that has tap power that he taps into and speed and just a really good quality hitter. Also,
go look at their swings compared side by side. They look identical. Like it's not just like a stature comparison.
Yeah.
Those swings look almost identical.
There you go. That's it. Definitely a guy to watch for those that don't know, a lesser known name, right? Like that's a name you should be keeping your eye on for sure. Jeff, who's your next guy up?
All right. Well, I think we only have one reliever, Jordan Leisure, in the top 30. But I'm going to suggest another guy. It's a guy that you just posted an interview with
Yep.
this morning, Eric Adler. He looks like he and Leisure could be a 1-2 punch in Chicago next year.
Yeah, I'm fired up about Eric Adler. What are some of the things you've noticed from him from what you saw? I mean, last year he was with Candy, then Winston, and then he started this year with Winston, already in Birmingham now.
Yeah, he's flying through the system. I just listened to that interview this morning, and this is a bright guy. He knows what he needs to fix to get even better, and he's got the big power arm to go with it.
Yeah, it's great stuff from Adler. My interview with him should be coming out, I think, tomorrow as we record this now. So I got to talk to him. He's got a really good mindset too. Like, this is a guy that, like, he doesn't see like his career and his trajectory as a bad thing. I think a lot of guys like hate the idea of being pigeonholed into being a reliever at an early point in their career. He loves it. He like directly told me, like, I love being a reliever. Like, I like the atmosphere. I have a job to do. I have to get 3 outs or I have to get 6 outs, and I go in and I get it done. And even when I don't have my best stuff, I can power through 3 innings, 3 outs, or whatever it might be, right? So it's a mindset. It's a powerful arm. The curveball is excellent. His cutter has gotten better over the last year. This is a guy that, it's back end reliever stuff if things keep clicking for him, and he should rise to the system. Like, I have him penciled in my 2025 bullpen, right? So, I think again, the system is so deep. It's hard to put a reliever in the top 30 when you've got 15 starters that are impressing you right now. But at the same time, like, if he's a 8th inning guy, if him and Jordan Leisure are an 8th, 9th inning combo, whichever way it goes in the future, that's still a really valuable piece, even as a prospect, right? So I think he's the back end of the top 30, maybe right at the edge of the just missed, right? But this is a guy who was already on the just missed last year and has continued to get better, right? So it's impressive stuff. The next guy I will go to is we'll speed through this one because we all know he's been amazing, but Brooks Baldwin has been like, is he the organizational like hitting MVP this year? I'd say so, right? I don't think. Definitely. I mean, maybe Delaney, yeah. Right? But I mean, Baldwin is like, this guy came into the season an aggressive assignment to AA. They said, oh, if Colson's going to be in AAA, we're just going to go straight to Baldwin in AA until Gonzalez is ready at shortstop, right? And you got a guy in Brooks Baldwin who now with Gonzalez there, he's going to play more second. He's going to play some third. He's going to play he can play everywhere, and he's good at defense everywhere. And he's just hitting and hitting and hitting. And he went through a little slump like 2 weeks ago. And then what does he do? He bounces back and hits like 350 this past week. I mean, it's not a ton of power, right? But it's speed, it's versatility, and it's incredible bat to ball skills. A guy that was on the just miss list, Brooks Baldwin, is he top 20? I think he's top 20 the way he's playing right now, maybe top 25. I think because he's kind of probably more of a utility player than an everyday shortstop. I think that might reduce his spot a little bit, but I think the way he's hitting right now, he's got to be like top 20 or so, right?
I would tend to agree. I think that like that 20 to 25 range is probably where I'd have him right now. But yeah. I think that his versatility is actually a strength for him. Like, I don't think that should be necessarily a knock on his game. I think that the more positions you can play at average or better, why not? Like, I know that we've seen like some wild comparisons thrown out there, but like Ben Zobrist, like I've seen that tossed out there for him, and like that doesn't seem that insane for him.
Shout out to Dan Haloti who told me that when I talked to him before the season after watching him in Canny last year. He was like, this guy's Ben Zobrist light, and I'm like, I'm down for that. Like, that's a great valuable player. Like, he doesn't have to be an everyday shortstop or whatever it is. Could he be the starting second baseman? I wouldn't be shocked if he's a starting second baseman in the future. But at the same time, if he can be, if everything clicks right, and you've got Ramos and Colson and Jake Gonzalez in your infield, if Brooks Baldwin is your rotating utility infield corner outfield guy, that's a heck of a valuable piece on the roster.
Yeah. And, I think at the start of the season, I would have said, maybe 25th, just because of a lack of an upside. But I think we have to rethink what that upside is.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, one more player for each of us, and then we're going to wrap here and get to our Pat Leyland interview. But Dylan, who's your last guy?
My last guy is Kai Busch. He was a guy who a lot of people were writing off last year. I mean, he was hurt last year, but now he's healthy. And he's looking even better than his 2022 campaign where he was healthy. And I think he ended up getting ranked a top 5 prospect in the Angels system. Granted, that doesn't mean all that much, considering the Angels just can't develop anything, even though, Caro and Bush, thank you.
Yeah.
But, he's striking out over 30% of his batters so far this year, only walking 11%. He's got a 2.09 ERA, which is fourth in the Southern League. And, he's doing it efficiently, too. He's pitched into the sixth in every start but his first one. So, he's continuing to throw strikes, get batters out. He looks like a completely new pitcher compared to the Kai Bush we saw last year. I know that we were talking about him as a potential long reliever out of the bullpen. He's thrown his way back into the starting pitcher mix.
Yeah, that's completely true. I kind of, after last year, I was like, oh, I could see Stuffley playing in the bullpen, and I still could see a world where he's a relief pitcher and a really good one. But at the same time, he's making starts and he looks great. 5+ strikeouts in every start. His last 3 starts, he's only had either 2 or 1 walks in each of them after walking 3 and 4 early in the season per game, right? So reducing the walks, throwing strikes, consistent minimal contact, he hasn't given up more than 3 runs in a single game this year. It's a steady, advanced arm right now, and someone who, at his age, we should be seeing Kai Bush in the big leagues not that far from now, right? What do you think though? Because he was ranked 16 in the preseason. Is he, what, 10 to 13 range-ish maybe, or is he more just kind of still around the same spot?
Yeah, I would say that 10 to 14 range. I think just because. Yeah. There's been other guys that are deserving of a jump, but I think he also is too. That's not right. A knock to him. I just think that 10 to 14 is in this system is you're still going to have a chance to be a contributing big league.
And
this
and I will mention
so much deeper.
Right. I will mention these rankings don't feature Thorpe and Iriarte too. So Bush would have been 18 then, in which case even a jump to 14, 15 is still a jump from the 18, 19 spot, which he would have been with the Padres guys factored in. So, that's a good jump. Jeff, your last guy?
My last guy, I came down to one of 2 guys. One is I guess he's now my honorable mention, Calvin Harris, because I think he's getting ready to get rolling in Winston. But I went with Ronnie Hernandez. And again, a lot of it is based on the hype when he came into the system. And then also, as people will find out when they listen to our Pat Leyland interview, Pat's really high on him. And that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It sounds like he's really working hard, and he's a young guy, 19 years old, right? He's still super young, and he's getting better defensively. It sounds like, and you'll hear that from Pat directly. But it's there's a lot of projection there. It's going to take him some time. But the good thing is, when you've got 3-4 really talented catchers in front of you, they can take their time with Ronnie. There's literally no rush for him when you've got a Caro and a Michael Turner and a Calvin Harris all ahead of him. He can be in Canny this entire season and continue to develop as a catcher. The last guy I will mention, another super young guy to round things out here, Adrian Gill. Adrian Gill is someone that I knew he was going into the season, and I had him on the radar a little bit, but at the same time, he's definitely kind of piqued my interest through these first few weeks. Not even on our, just missed or anything last year. International signing, just 18 years old still. 18 years old infielder with a 986 OPS so far this season in the ACL to start the year. He just seems like a guy who just hits. I don't have enough footage on him to have a really deep, opinion on him, right? But in 13 games in Arizona, 12 walks, 10 strikeouts, in addition to 6 stolen bases, and an OPS over almost 1,000, right? So it's steady contact. He looks like he's a guy that's going to have some speed, right? He had a 998 OPS last year in the DSL, right? So and more walks and strikeouts in the DSL last year as well. So clearly an advanced approach for his age. Someone with some speed, someone with some consistent contact skills. Hoping the power will continue to develop for him. So that's another guy, a super young guy that I think will at least be on the just missed list heading into the year, and as he gets older, could continue to rise even further.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, that is all we have for this segment. This was a great segment. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It was a blast.
Thank you so much, guys. I had an awesome time.
Terrific.
Yeah, we'll have you back on soon. Don't you worry. And now we'll send it over to our interview with Pat Leyland. Welcome in. We are now joined by Pat Leyland, manager of the Kannapolis Cannonballers. Thank you for joining us, Pat. We are super excited to get your input on your team that is really thriving right now.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you guys for having me. I'm sitting in my hotel in Augusta and getting ready to go try to get one tonight. So that's where we're at.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. So we're excited to talk to you because, last year was your first season as the manager in Kannapolis, and now this year, there's a lot of influx of guys from this 2023 draft that are joining your roster, some carryovers that you had on your roster last year, 22-17 through your first 39 games. It's been a really fun time, especially the last week or two has been super exciting in Kannapolis. In general, before we dive into some other stuff, what has kind of the beginning of this season been like for you, and just how are you feeling about the roster you have this season?
Well, it's a fun team. I mean, I was fortunate last year as well. You mentioned it. We had a really good group of guys, and it's sort of continued this year. We've gotten off to a nice start. Our pitching's really been a bright spot for us, and we've had some nice contributions on the offensive side. We've got a lot of guys getting better. Certainly we feel like it's trending in the right direction, and we're excited about it.
Definitely.
Pat, before we jump in and go through some of the individual players, let's take just a second. And if you could tell us about your baseball career that has led you to Kannapolis.
Yeah, well, my playing career didn't go exactly how I would have preferred it to. A lot of guys can say that, I think, but I was drafted out of high school and signed and ended up playing through spring training of 2017 and bounced around quite a bit the last couple years. And, battled some injuries and just didn't perform well enough to continue to play. So I was lucky to get right into coaching that summer with Baltimore and spent a few good seasons over there, met some great people, and ended up over here with the White Sox in the crazy 2020 season that never ended up happening. I was in spring training, I think, for 5 or 6 days when the world shut down. So fortunate to be over here now and really enjoyed my time over here. We got some really quality people.
Well, that's great. And one last thing before we jump into the players, and you and I talked about this briefly. If folks don't know, your dad, Jim Leyland, was just elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And if you could just tell us again just a little bit about what that day was like, being with your dad, waiting for the phone call.
Yeah, that day was stressful. It was an odd day. It's funny. I haven't told this story, I don't think, too many times, but my mom decided we were going to replace all the fixtures in their home in the kitchen that day. So my fiance and I had a power drill, taking off handles and putting on new handles. I think we were just looking for anything to do to just kind of take our minds off it. But we went over there for dinner and everything was great up until about 6 o'clock. And then when 6 o'clock rolled around, it was tense, because you're just waiting for the phone to ring at that point. We knew that window opened up at 6:30. And at that point, there really wasn't a whole lot to be said. It was just, hey, let's wait and see and let's find out. And just absolutely thrilled once he did get the call. And that was such an enjoyable moment for our family and something we'll never forget.
How does the kitchen look?
I haven't heard any complaints yet. I guess none of the doors have fallen off, so we must have done okay.
And one last note about that. You're going to be able to go to the Hall of Fame ceremonies this summer and watch your dad get inducted.
Yeah. I'm going to be there for that weekend with our family and close friends and really the baseball world. So I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a special weekend and something that you only get one time. So we're looking to make the most of it, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now it's cool, because you kind of have this ability right now with Kannapolis and with the White Sox organization. You got your own path going too, so you get to enjoy that with your dad, and then you also have your own career and coaching journey that you're embarking on right now. So getting into all that stuff, right? Like this roster and this organization, I think right now is in a spot in terms of like prospect depth that we haven't seen in a while. And Jeff and I talk about this every week on our podcast. Like there's guys at every level right now that you're looking at and like, wow, there's some serious talent at every level of the minor leagues. And that's super exciting for us and for the organization as a whole. Can we just dive into, some specific players and just kind of get your ideas and your thoughts on what you've seen from them? We'll start on the pitching side, because I know you mentioned, your pitching this whole season has been top to bottom has been really good. A guy that I kind of noticed last year and had on my radar at the end of the season when he was pitching with you guys down the stretch. And then now this year going into the year, I was like, oh, I kind of think this guy's due for, another step forward. Is Aldrin Batista. I think I've been super impressed by what I've seen from him. What have you noticed from Batista kind of going in from last year and then what you've seen from him now this season to start the year?
Well, he's a fun watch, man. I mean, if you come to the games, attacking from the first pitch of the game on. I think that's what stands out to me the most is when he's out there, man, he ain't afraid. He's going right after guys, and he's kind of got that traditional windup that you don't really see anymore where,
Yep.
I mean, he's got, he's super downhill on guys. I mean, once he gets going, he's kind of charging them. So he's been fun to watch, man. He's performed really well, and he's got good stuff. I mean, he's got a good arm. He's young. He's definitely got a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah. In terms of his pitches, go ahead, Jeff.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you take it. I was going to say, he mixes kind of that funky, the sinker with then his slider, right? He's got that pairing. Is there anything that he's working on kind of adding to his repertoire or adjusting to maximize his stuff?
I think he's just refining.
Yeah.
Pitchers, especially at the lower levels of the minor leagues, with how much data we have and everything. I mean, there's always something to tinker with. There's always something to improve upon a little bit. And, I want to give a shout out to Blake Hickman. I mean, he's done an outstanding job now in his second season here as well. And, Blake works, relentlessly with these guys to try to improve them. And certainly you can see that with Batista. I mean, he came in a good spot last year, and he looks like he's just continuing to trend in the positive direction.
Yeah.
Another guy I want to ask you about, he was with your team last year, but looks like a totally different guy, and especially his last 2 weeks, Drew McDaniel. Oh, my gosh. What an encore last night to a heck of a performance a week ago.
Yeah, Drew's been fun to watch, man. I'm really proud of him for a lot of different reasons. But, yeah, he's taken a legitimate step forward. He competed well for us last year. He showed flashes of it. This year he's really refined it, and he's taken on, coming back to Kannapolis and improving like a professional, and he's been a pleasure to have. And I love seeing what he's done lately. I like the aggressiveness at which he's going after guys, and kind of letting his stuff work and not trying to be so fine that he puts himself in some bad counts. But he's been really, really aggressive, especially these last two. But he's been good all year for us, man. And he's just a solid performer.
Yeah, no, you can tell kind of the experience with him, and now he just looks like he's comfortable. I think last year he there was flashes for sure, but now it looks like he's really trusting his stuff, and his stuff has been excellent, obviously, as shown by his strikeout numbers and what he's done the last few weeks. The rest of your rotation is all these draft guys, right? So now that you got Grant Taylor was promoted last week, you've got the other 4 guys in the rotation are 4 guys that were drafted in the top 10 rounds, all of them, of this past draft, right? Starting with Grant Taylor, and then we'll get into the others. I know you've seen the least of him, but what have you seen already in one start and, spring training and stuff from Grant Taylor?
I think you see a horse. I mean, This guy's physical. This guy, he looks the part. He's got a big arm. He's got big time stuff. I mean, he's exciting. I mean, like you said, I've only seen him one time for 4 innings. So, I'd like to get a little more of a look at him. I didn't really see him in spring training. Spring training's so kind of spread out where, you may be managing a field or on a field where you just don't see guys. I mean, we have pitchers on this roster this year that I didn't see in spring training. So, Grant's really exciting. I mean, you can see some ceiling there. You can see legitimate potential major league stuff there, no question about it. And, that's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the upside with him is off the charts.
Yeah, I was at that game as well, Pat. And, his fastball is 96 to 99, really easy, not a max effort guy. And when I talked to him, one of the things that struck me is, you get this quiet confidence, this maturity, he knows what he's doing. It's a different feeling than talking to some of the other guys. I mean,
one thing I was impressed with in that first outing, I believe it was he cruised through the first, and I believe it was the second inning. The guy ambushed a first pitch cutter for a long homer, first pitch of the inning. So, that was kind of, I think, a little bit of a whoa moment. Like, okay, and like, what's this guy going to do? And he just went right back at it. They got another run on some soft contact, and then he got through the third. And I was really pleased that he went out with a limited number pitch-wise in the fourth and was able to get through it really efficiently. So that was impressive to see, just because you see a guy with such power stuff and such a highly regarded prospect and everything, for him to get jumped like that, pretty early on in a game, to see him just not really be fazed whatsoever by it, nor should he have been, because he's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good composure. And I think part of that is, it's experience, right? Like he pitched at the very highest level of college baseball too. So that's one thing that can kind of play a factor in that maturity and that ability to just not be phased by any small blimps, right? Speaking of guys who, pitched at high levels in college, Seth Keener is a cool dude. I talked to him in the offseason, and he definitely was super interesting to talk to. And I love the way he thinks about baseball. But, that's a guy who pitched as a reliever primarily in Wake Forest, right? And has battled some command things. Now he's kind of adjusting to being a starter. What is that kind of process like? And how do you see him going about it where he's figuring out how to be a starting pitcher really?
Yeah, Seth is an interesting guy. I've gotten to know him. I've gotten closer with him, I feel like, in the beginning parts of this season, just talking to him more, kind of understanding how he thinks and how he goes about it. He's definitely intellectual. He's smart. He's looking for edges. I just make sure I try to talk to him sometimes. Hey, man, don't overthink it. Just let your stuff work, because he's got good stuff. Some command in and out sometimes, once in a while, but yeah, he's got good stuff. He projects. He's new to this, and he's been outstanding so far. I mean, he's had a few little blips here and there, like you said, but most guys do. It's not an easy game, and it's not always a perfect path, but he's been really good so far. And I think he's another guy, and I don't want to keep repeating myself, but the trend is positive, right? Like you're seeing, improvements from outing to outing, and little things here and there. And my message really to those guys, Seth in particular, but like I mentioned with Drew, is you have good stuff. Make sure you let it play. We don't have to be absolutely perfect, all the time. Let's just attack these guys a little bit. And I think Seth's taken that, and certainly he's done a ton of work with Hick too. They primarily do all the game planning. That's their area. But just from a competitive standpoint, don't get so wrapped up in making a perfect pitch all the time. Just let your stuff work and keep attacking guys.
For sure. With someone like Lucas Gordon, right? I think that's another one of those guys in the rotation, right? Gordon is like, the stuff doesn't jump at you when you watch it to the same degree of a Taylor or a Keener necessarily, but the way he pitches, it's just been so effective so far. And I feel like I wasn't as familiar with his game in comparison to a Keener or a Taylor before this season. And now watching a lot of his starts this year, it's like, man, this guy just knows how to get out. And I feel like I watch him and I just see a guy who's confident and just hits his spots, and it's just been nothing but effective pretty much all season. Is that accurate of Gordon?
Yeah, I noticed Gordon last year, and the first thing I noticed about him was I kind of fell in love with him because I loved his changeup. You see a left-handed pitcher with repeatable mechanics and a good body and a good arm, and that kind of changeup that does stand out to me a little bit, I think. And Gordo's going to take off as soon as that fastball command kind of cleans up a little bit. I think he's working on that right now. But when his fastball command cleans up and he can establish both sides of the plate with it, he's got a chance to be really, really good.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Honestly, that's one thing I've noticed as well.
The last two guys, Pat, in your rotation are the two Jakes, right? Peppers and Bokenstedt, and they both have looked really good this year as well.
Yeah. Peppers, he's fiery, man. He goes out there and competes. He's a character, man. He's funny. We enjoy having him around. He brings some life to the party for sure. But he goes out there and competes. And, he gives us a chance every time out, and we like his stuff. And, another guy that kind of falls into that category, he goes out and he pitches well. I mean, nothing crazy at you, but it's pretty good, And then Bach's been there, and he's, I think he had one kind of clunky one maybe at one point, but aside from that, I mean, Bach's been very, very consistent as well. And he goes out and he's 8 innings for us in quality innings. So, all those guys, really 1 through 6 and really 1 through 7, have given us a chance every night. And I think that's what's important is, when you're starting pitching, can keep you in games and go deeper into games. That affects how you can use the bullpen, and, the offense and the defense kind of tends to feed off of that. So I'm a big proponent of starting pitchers, trying to get into games. I know the game's changed a little bit, but I've been probably most proud of how our starters have gone deep into games consistently. And I think that's why we're in in positions where, we're playing competitive games. You may win them, you may lose them, but you're in them almost every night.
Definitely. And that's what's cool too, is you've got more guys on the way, right? Like one of the things is there's a few guys in your rotation that definitely are going to get promotions throughout this season, right? But then you've got guys like a Christian Opper, like a Matthias Lacumbe. There's guys coming up that are pitching in Arizona right now that are also going to be, potentially part of your roster later in the season. So it speaks to the depth of the system. And a guy like Bach, right? Like being in the bullpen now is like, it's not because he's been pitching poorly. Like he's been great. There's just a lot of pitching talent in the system right now.
Yeah, there's so many factors that go into that. I mean, what's going on above you, what's going on below you. I mean, there's things that are out of your control there. But listen, you can't have enough quality pitching. I mean, that number doesn't exist. So yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the guys in Arizona. I read reports, and we'll kind of check in on what's going on out there. And I know Danny Gonzalez is out there managing, and Gelly's out there, so I'll talk to those guys once in a while, but I'm pretty much just focused on Kannapolis and the 30 that we got.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Well, Pat, I'm just curious. The bullpen's been really strong as well. I was really impressed tonight with the two guys who came in behind Grant Taylor. Behind Drew McDaniel, because I was really hoping they were going to lock down that win, and I'm curious who has stood out so far early in the season out of the bullpen.
Well, I think several guys really, but I think if you kind of work from back to front, I mean, Mendez is exciting. That's a young guy with a big time, arsenal and somebody that you can kind of dream on a little bit, in a bullpen role at much higher levels. So Mendy's been really good. Altermat's kind of been our unsung hero. He's been very, very consistent. Billy Seidel is doing well right now. He's a guy, obviously a familiar face from last year, that's had some things that he had to work on, and to his credit, he's attacking those things, and he's trending in the right direction. Tommy Vale, I mean, he's got some big outs for us and some innings in that continuation game last week. I mean, he was outstanding. Him and Arias as well. I mean, so you just, we've got a lot of guys. Everybody right now is contributing. And I think that with the bullpen in particular, that also goes back to the conversation we were just having about the starters. You want to be able to put the bullpen guys in a position to succeed too. And when you can use them the way that you want to use them, as opposed to how you have to use them to get through a game, that's going to lead to better results for the bullpen guys too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shifting gears over to the offensive side of the ball, right? You've got a lineup that's kind of stacked at the top with these guys from last year's draft. Same thing as your rotation, right? That's obviously how it goes. You get a lot of draft guys. Starting at the top of the lineup, Mariku Nishida is someone that Jeff has been a huge fan of since he was drafted. I'm a big fan of. Just a fascinating ball player, right? Like, what is it like just watching him play baseball every day, honestly?
I think all of Kannapolis is a big fan of him, man. I mean,
yeah.
He's something else. He's a character, a great guy. It's been fun to have him. He makes us go. When he's out there, when he's grinding out at bats, 10, 12 pitches, fouling balls off, taking a walk, getting a base hit, stealing a base. I mean, he just brings an energy for us that tends to lead to some pretty good results, and I think that kind of carries over for the rest of the offense. And he's been great in that leadoff spot, man. He can play second. He can play the outfield. He just brings a lot to the table. He kind of makes us go. And, he's been a staple for us for sure.
His game fascinates me, but I'm curious, what does he need to do to take his game and be effective in Winston-Salem and Birmingham?
Well, that's a good question. We talk a lot about that and how a guy may project at higher levels. Listen, he's effective. So the competition will kind of tell you what you need to do. Certainly the game gets faster the higher you go. But, I mean, he's never going to be a 30 homer guy. He's never going to, he just needs to continue to catch the ball, play multiple positions, steal a base. He's a contributing player to a winning team. I'm not going to sit here and say what his ceiling is. That's, like I said, that's for the competition to decide. As far as what does he need to do, we're talking to him about, picking and choosing some spots to be a little more aggressive offensively and get that A swing off a little bit more from time to time. But he's got a pretty well-rounded game. He knows himself. He always tells me I give him the 3-0 green light. He never takes it, and I get on him. I say, hey man, once in a while, depending on the situation, if I say you can swing, man, go ahead and swing once in a while. And he looks at me and he goes, no, statistics. So I just said, hey man, you do your thing and play your game. But he's a beauty, and every manager that's going to have him is going to love him. So
yeah,
looking forward to seeing what he does going forward.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love watching. He's not afraid to take pitches. I think he had 3 at bats that one of our colleagues, Ian, posted that I think he saw 23 pitches and 3 at bats because he'll stand there and foul them off, and the next thing you know, he's on first base with a walk.
I think there was one night Charlie told me we were in the clubhouse after the game, and I think he saw 34 pitches or 36 pitches on a night.
It's crazy.
I mean, it was unbelievable. It was last week. I think I think Charlie said it was like 34 pitches.
And that's something you don't see in the stat sheet, right? Like, you're not going to see that in the stat sheet, but him wearing down pitchers ahead of at the top of the order with other guys following him is only going to make at bats even easier for the rest of your lineup, right?
It's very valuable. It's absolutely very valuable. And I think, too, it kind of sets a larger tone of – it's so nice to have him leading off because it's one of those things where it's like, hey, man, the first hitter of the game, you got to go get this guy out. And it's not easy to do. You're going to have to throw him strikes. He's not going to chase. He's not going to beat himself. And even if you do throw him strikes, it may be 10 pitches, So he sets the tone for us for sure at the top.
Yeah, that's great. And then, so I found this little stat yesterday that I thought was pretty cool. As of yesterday, Ryan Galaney had the 4th highest WRC plus in all of minor league baseball. That guy has just been unbelievable this season. Consistent. The last few weeks, especially, like every time I look at a game, he's making an impact. What have you seen from Galaney as, a small college guy, someone that doesn't have a ton of high level experience necessarily, right? But he comes in and has just been nothing but consistent last season and then even this season, right?
Yeah, once he got healthy in Arizona and I found out we were going to get him, I was really pleased about it because I thought he'd be a nice offensive piece for us. I can't sit here and say that I expected him to do what he's done so far, but he looks like a polished college physical hitter to me.
Yeah.
He uses all fields. He's certainly not afraid to go to right field. That's actually where he's probably at his best. When he pulls balls or hits homers, to the pull side, they tend to be hanging breaking balls. But he stays to the middle of the field pretty good. And he gives us a tough at bat, and he's got some thump, like you said. I mean, he can drive the ball when he hits it, something happens, and he's been taking really good at bats. He's been taking his walks. He's off to an impressive start, and you like the physicality to him. He's like I said, when he hits it, he hits it hard.
Yeah, definitely.
I know a lot of you guys have great work ethic and work hard, but an interesting note about Galaney is, I often am beside the batting cages when I talk to players post-game. And I noted in 2 of the last 3 games, as soon as the game ended, including one where he hit the 3-run home run in, I think, Drew McDaniel's game 2 weeks ago, as soon as the game ended, he's in the batting cage alone working on his swing. He's done that 2 of the last 3 games I've been there.
Yeah, well, if he was in the cages alone after the game, it's because I didn't have time to kick him out yet. Because we don't really love guys hitting after the game, and we're there at we're there at 12 o'clock, 12:30, and we got plenty of time and plenty of days here to work on swings. But no, he is an incredibly hard worker, and he cares. He wants it. He wants to get better. He's very process oriented. He has a plan. He sticks to it. He has a practice routine. He sticks to it. And he's seeing some really good results right now, and I'm happy for him because, like you said, I mean, all kidding aside, he does work very, very hard at it. And he works hard at his defense, too. I want to mention that. I think he's got a lot better defensively this year. And, he's pretty routine-oriented there, too. He has a plan, and he's attacking that side of the game as well, and that's been fun to see.
Yeah, that's great. Another guy who kind of has popped onto radars that I don't think many people were necessarily knew going into this season. Someone that I got to watch. I remember watching him out in California when he was in college still at Fullerton. Caden Connor. I talked to him recently as well. He's really kind of shown some things this year that I didn't necessarily get the chance to see from him last year, even when he was in school. Right, versatility too. Like the guy, he sounds super confident in playing the corner outfields, playing first base, and has just been another really steady bat alongside Galaney.
Yeah. I saw Caden for the first time in Arizona for the week I went out there for instructional league, I think it was. And I liked his swing right away. Like you see him playing first. They say, hey, no, he can play the outfield too. And I was only out there for a week. I got kind of a limited look at him. And I locked in on him in spring training because I knew he was going to be a piece probably in the middle of our order in trying to figure out, okay, what would be the best way to use him and what's this guy all about? And he's a competitor. He gets after it. And just from, like a tool perspective, he's looked really good at first base. I mean, very comfortable, very, very solid. And he's been a pleasant surprise in the outfield. I didn't know he was as good an outfielder as he is.
Yeah.
He made a great throw last night that totally changed the momentum of our entire game, throwing a guy out at third base. And he's been really good on both sides of the ball. And I mean, he's got 34 RBIs through 39 games.
Yeah.
So he's hitting over 300 now. So this guy, is a nice college left-handed hitting bat that can certainly play first base and can definitely play a corner outfield position. He's a better athlete than I thought, maybe going into it as well. He throws. He's pretty solid across the board, and he's been a nice presence for us. Hitting third, I think, basically every game of the season, if not every game of the season. I think I gave him one day off, but he's been really good for us.
Yeah, I love what I've got to see from him so far.
And you've got another guy near the top of your lineup, a new addition, Ryan Burrows. What have you seen from him, and what do you expect going forward?
Ryan's a talented guy. He's an athlete. You don't really see those types of bodies and those types of athletes, playing in the middle of the field at his age, all the time. So he can do a lot of things. He's playing short for us. It's looked good. I know he was naturally an outfielder, I believe, before he signed, or maybe even right after he signed. So to come into the middle of the diamond and play short at this level right now is pretty impressive. And I don't think we've seen the best side of him offensively yet. He's had some early kind of struggles a little bit. He's got some hits, but I don't think we've seen anything close to what this guy's capable of offensively. But you talk about, projectable, athletic body, and that's what you see. And we're excited to have him, and he's going to get a ton of opportunities. He's really well thought of. He's a smart kid, wants to get better, and that's going to be an exciting one to follow.
Yeah, and I can imagine for him being around kind of, being plopped in the lineup right now with a bunch of guys who have high-level college experience, they've all got a few years on him for sure. It's only going to help him just grow as a player and understanding of the game, right?
Yeah, I think the more you're in that environment, the better off. And I think really the competition's going to help him. He's going to figure out, what he needs to do and, what his routine needs to be, what his work needs to be. Speaking about these hitters, I can't not talk about Charlie Romero. We are fortunate. I am fortunate, and the White Sox are, to have as good a hitting coach as I've ever been around at any level. He is that good. And, these hitters, they just absolutely love him. They can't wait to work with him. And he is relentless. He is as hard a worker as you're going to find. And just a very solid, even-keeled presence for these guys that, is really, really important. It goes a long way.
Yeah, that's awesome. One last young guy that I want to kind of touch on here is Ronnie Hernandez, who, the numbers don't jump off the charts right now, right? Like he hasn't had the best start to his season, but this is a guy that had an over 900 OPS last year in the rookie ball this year, right? Like you can see a really sophisticated approach for a 19-year-old, right? He has more walks and strikeouts already this season, hasn't quite found a lot of his power yet, but what are kind of the next steps for Ronnie to take his kind of advanced approach for a 19-year-old and continue to build on that?
Yeah, Ronnie Hernandez can hit. Ronnie has a nice left-handed swing. He's a pretty good decision maker especially for his age, but really just in general. He sees the ball well. He's kind of got a slow heartbeat, which can be good. He's kind of very consistent. Doesn't really get too high or too low. But he approaches his at bats really well, and I think he manages his at bats really well. I think with Ronnie, it's okay. He's done a good job behind the plate too. He's starting to get better behind the plate. We knew going into the year that there was going to be a learning curve there, especially when you start talking about game planning and bullpen guys and starters and game planning the other hitters and all those different things that come with being in an affiliate now. There was certainly going to be a learning curve for him in that position catching. So he's trending in the right direction offensively, defensively. I think with Ronnie, we want to get him naturally to take what he does really good and just properly add some physicality to it.
Yeah.
And when he does that, I think you're looking at a very nice young left-handed hitting catcher.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Any other thoughts from you, Jeff?
Well, I just have one last kind of wrap-up question for Pat. As a manager in low A, you're getting these young players. How do you yourself measure success? When do you feel like you're doing a good job?
Well, that's a great question. I measure success by a couple different things. Are the players getting better? Yes or no? And do I feel like we're competing to win a game every night? If we're doing those two things, and the first one being more important, the players have to be getting better. If you're a minor league manager and your players are not getting better, it doesn't matter what your record is. It doesn't matter what else you're doing. If you're not getting the players better, you're not doing your job. So that's first and foremost. Once you feel like you're accomplishing that and that's trending in the right direction, I want to make sure that our team's in a position to be prepared to go out and compete to win a game every night. And what does that look like? And how do we go about that? So that's how I measure it. And I'm sure it may be different for different people, different organizations. But yeah, I just want our guys getting better, and I want them, once that game starts to go out, be prepared to go and compete and try to win it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we are really excited to watch the rest of the season in Kannapolis. Maybe even some playoff run this year, first in the Southern, the Carolina Southern Division right now. So we're excited to see where everything takes you this season, and we really appreciate you hopping on and sharing some thoughts with us.
No, man, I'll tell you what, I appreciate you guys having me, and any opportunity I get a chance to talk about this group of guys, I jump at, because the baseball aside, they are a great group of young men, and I certainly appreciate having them and being able to be a small part of it. And it's fun. It's really fun to be a part of it and watch these guys and kind of be in there with them every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you deserve credit for it as well, for sure, for working with these guys, because it takes a manager and a coaching staff to get these players, continue to progress, right?
Yeah, well, listen, they make it fun. They make it fun to show up every day.
Pat, I go to Charlotte, Winston, Kannapolis, but Elijah will tell you, I love coming to Kannapolis to cover ball games. I mean, you are so helpful and so accommodating. Your players are so friendly and so patient. It's just a delightful experience. It's great baseball. It's a great atmosphere. So I appreciate everything you do for us, and good luck on the road.
I appreciate it. Absolutely, guys. Like I said, thank you guys for having me, and hope to see you, Jeff. I'm sure I'll see you down the road here soon. And Elijah, it's been nice to meet you and nice chat.